Welcome to this EstimatorXpress Getting Started video. In this section we'll be estimating an Apex Valley roof. Find the Apex Valley roof workbook in your summary list. Click on the workbook to select it and click Open Workbook. Create a new worksheet by clicking Add Worksheet. Check the name and the location of the worksheet and edit them if required. The default name is Roof and the default location is taken from the job description, so in this case the location is set to Extension. Now you need to consider the wall width. The default wall width in the roof workbooks is 0.3 metres or 300 millimeters. So if you're estimating an extension with 0.3 metre wide walls as I am, you can leave it set to the value in the dimensional template. However, if you're estimating a new build with wider cavities and therefore a wider overall wall width, click on the drop down box and select the appropriate wall width. EstimatorXpress will list all of the walls you've already estimated, showing their width first, so just click on one of the walls with the appropriate wall width. For my extension example, I'm going to leave it set to the default value. Once you've set the wall width, you can select a dimensional template. There are variations with or without fascias and barge boards, and there are also options for a standard flat ceiling or a vaulted ceiling. I'm going to select the tiled roof without fascias and barge boards and insulation and plastering to a flat ceiling. Once you've selected the dimensional template, click Confirm. EstimatorXpress launches the Dimensions wizard on page 1 of 4. You can now go through the dimensions and change any as necessary. You can switch on the Show Tech Tips and Show Tech Labels options at the bottom of the Dimensions wizard to help you enter the correct information. Starting on the left, we have the soffit width. This is currently set to 0 as I selected the dimensional template without barge boards and soffits. Then we have the wall width, which is set to the default value of 0.3 metres. If you'd selected a wider wall width from the drop-down box when creating the worksheet, your chosen wall width would appear here. Next we have the clear span of joists. As the overall width of my roof is 4 metres, including 0.3 metres at each end for the wall, the clear span of joists needs to be 3.4 metres. Then we've got the wall width and the soffit width on the other side of the roof in case they're different. On the right hand side you can set the pitch of the roof in degrees and also the pitch of the parent roof. For my extension I'm going to set these to 40 degrees. Remember, you can press the Tab key or the Enter key to move to the next dimension input box. Now think about what percentage of the original tiles will be reused. Take a look at the tech tip for clarification. I'm going to set the percentage tile intersection to 75%, as we're going to reuse the tiles which are being removed from the main roof. Check you're happy with the number of purlins, binders and eaves fascias. Again, this is set to 0 as we selected the dimensional template without fascias, barge boards and soffits. Now let's have a look at the timber and roof strap details. Here you can review some of the finer details of the roof construction. Most of these dimensions are fairly standard and won't need changing very often. Cast your eye over the dimensions and check whether you want eaves roof ventilators, tilting fillets and the width of the air gap. You can also tweak the end bearings for the joists and binders, the joist width, the cutting allowance and the rafter width. Once you've reviewed that information, click to go back to the Roof Structural Information 1 page, and then click Next to go on to the next page. On page 2, check the rafter centres and the joist centres. Then type in the internal eaves length, in other words the wall plate length. In my extension example, it's 2.2 metres. The wall width is set to 0.3 metres as before, and the soffit width is set to 0. On the right hand side, we've got the number of gable rafters each side. This is set to 0 as the brickwork goes up to the undercloak in this example. The number of barge boards is also set to 0 as we selected a template without barge boards. You can set this to 2 if you want to add in barge boards. Check the number of rainwater pipes is correct. You may not need 2 if you're using a downpipe on the existing roof, so you can change that number if required. Then check the number of gutters. You can set that to 1 if you only need gutter on one side. Type in the length of the rainwater pipes This figure is used to calculate the total length of downpipe required. Finally, enter the number of gutter angles needed to allow you to return to an existing gutter. Once you've done that, you can click Gutter Details. In here you can change the gutter clip fixing centres. I'm going to change that to 1 metre. You can also tweak the downpipe fixing centres, and you can alter the supplied length of gutter and the supplied length of downpipe. The information you see here on the secondary pages of the Dimensions Wizard is set to really standard default values, so you won't need to review the information very often. Return to the Roof Structural Information 2 page and then click Next to go on to the next page. On page 3 we can go through the tiling and insulation details. If the roof is abutting a wall at one or two ends, you can enter the number of gable abutments here. You would then type in the length of the abutment. This would calculate the leadwork and the cutting required to adjoin the roof to the wall. As the valley here is adjoining the main roof, we can leave that all set to 0. On the right hand side, check the spacing of the tile lath, or the batten gauge as it's sometimes known. It's currently set at 0.1 metre or 100 mm, which is appropriate for a plain tile. As I selected the concrete interlocking tile mini spec when I created my estimate, I need to set that to 0.3 metres or 300 mm. You can then add sarking board if you need it. You could also use this option to allow for tongue and groove board if you're estimating a closed boarded roof. Next, you need to think about whether you need insulation to the rafters. In this case, I'm not doing a vaulted ceiling, so I don't need insulation to the rafters. Check you're happy with the insulation overlap, and then think about the insulation to the ceiling. Insulation to ceiling is currently set to yes, as we're doing a flat ceiling which does need to be insulated. Now let's take a look at the tiling details. Here you can confirm if the ridge will have a sand and cement or dry fix system, and the same for the verge. Once you've reviewed that information, click Tiling and Insulation to return to page 3. Then click Next. On page 4 you can check the roof finishes. As we selected a flat ceiling template, the underside of the rafters is not set to be plastered or decorated. The flat ceiling will be plastered and decorated, however. On the right we have options for priming and decorating the soffits, and the barge boards and fascias. If you select timber soffits, barge boards and fascias, you can set these to yes to decorate or apply a treatment. Once you've finished reviewing that information, click Finish. You've now entered all of the information required to estimate the Apex Valley roof. To view a detailed timber cutting list, together with details of tiling, guttering, insulation, plastering and so on, click the Filter Material Quantities button. Now let's have a look at the resources which have been specified on the Calculated Resources tab. Click the Calculated Resources tab. On this screen we can now see all of the materials, labour and plant which have been estimated for the roof based on the dimensions of the roof. Here we can see the structural timber which is being used for each part of the roof. Of course, you can also view this information on diagrams using the Resources Wizard. Click the Resources Wizard button. Click on each item to see what material has been specified. The specified material is shown in the Resource Used drop-down box. If you click on the Apex Valley roof rafters and click on the Resource Used drop-down box, you'll see that a sawn dry-graded structural softwood 47 by 125 mm is being used. You could swap that for a more substantial timber, such as the 47 by 150 mm timber. Click on the alternative material you want to use to select it. The Edit Resource dialog box then appears. Click the Calculator button to check the usage factor for the timber. This is quite straightforward, as the timber is purchased and used by the metre. So 1 metre of the timber is being used for 1 metre of Apex Valley roof rafter. Click OK, and then OK again. So that's the timber for the Apex Valley roof rafters swapped. Of course, the cost, estimate rate and total item cost have been updated to take account of the change of material. It may be because you're using a thicker timber, it's going to take slightly longer to cut. It'll also be a bit heavier to carry around, so it'll take slightly longer to fix it. To change the build speed and allow more time to fix the timber, in the drop-down box at the bottom of the Resources Wizard, select Labour, Plant, Subcontract and Sundry. click on the item called Fix Valley Roof Rafters. As we're not going to change the resource being used, go straight to Edit Build Phase and Usage Factor. The labour resource specified is a joiner and mate, at a cost of £33 per hour. Click on the Calculator button. It's currently estimated that the joiner and mate will take 1 hour to fix just over 15 metres of valley roof rafter. We can change that to say that in an hour the joiner and mate will fix only 14 metres of valley roof rafter. This will of course increase the per metre rate slightly. Click OK to confirm the change, and then click OK again. Back in the Resources wizard, click Next, select Material from the drop-down box, and then review the other materials which are being used. If we click onto the tiling details on page 3, and click onto the tiles, if we look at the resource used, we can see that the concrete interlocking tile has been specified as per the selected mini-spec. Once you've finished reviewing the resources, click Finish, and then click Close Workbook to return to the job summary. So that's the Apex Valley roof complete. Thank you for watching this EstimatorXpress video on estimating an Apex Valley roof.